Here we are on page 215, supplement 12, kinds of powers, referring back to page 67, which is in part 7, the sevenfold veil. Spirituality and spiritualism are two different things. Spirituality has nothing to do with any kind of power in any form. Spirituality is the path of love for God and obedience and surrender to the perfect master. As one travels the path, one comes across powers on the planes of consciousness. Those on the planes from first to fourth are sometimes tempted to demonstrate these powers. There are three kinds of powers. One, the divine powers of the fourth plane. Two, the occult powers of the first three planes of consciousness. These are called the mystic powers. And three, other occult powers. Number one, the divine powers of the fourth plane are the almighty powers of God. They are the source of all powers, whether mystic or other occult powers. The mystic and other occult powers are infinitely insignificant in comparison with the divine powers. The divine powers remain always the same because God is always one and the same. The occult powers, whether they are of the planes or not, are different in kind and vary in expression. The miracles performed through the manifestation of the divine powers by the avatar and the kutub are called mojazat. These are performed for the good of all on a limited scale by the kutub and on a universal scale by the avatar. However, these can be performed for any individual in close association with the avatar or the kutub. The miracles performed indirectly by those on the fifth and sixth planes with the help of the divine powers are called karama'at. The display of the mystic powers by those on the first up through the third plane cannot in fact be termed miracles. Such a display is nothing but a show of powers that they come across while traversing the planes. Such a display of powers is called shobhana. When the one on the fourth plane makes good use of the divine powers and performs a miracle, it can be termed as karamat e mojeza. When he makes a bad use of them, that is, misuses the divine powers of the fourth plane. It is called Mojaza e Shobada. The fourth plane is regarded as the threshold of the mental sphere. And so the misuse of the divine powers on the fourth plane results in a fall as far back as the stone state and results in disintegration of consciousness. Number two, the occult powers of the first three planes, called the mystic powers, cannot be misused by the aspirant on these planes, though they sometimes are tempted to display them. These mystic powers are different and vary in expression, such as reading the minds of others, reciting words or passages from a book without seeing it, allowing themselves to be buried alive for hours together, etc. The powers of the planes are not induced. These powers are ever accessible to those on the planes within their own limited environment, and as such need no concentrated effort to display them. This display of powers should not be confused with the demonstrations of mind readers and of others who put on stage performances. The one on the third plane of consciousness can raise dead subhuman creatures, but can never make a dead human being alive. This he can do because of the nearness to and warmth of the divine powers of the fourth plane. But on the fourth plane, but one on the fourth plane can raise the dead, including human beings, by the use of the divine powers of the fourth plane. The one on the third plane can change his physical form at will. And one who does this is known as Abdal. This act is also a display of the mystic powers, but not the misuse of powers. However, this act should not be confused with the dematerialization or materialization of the human forms by the tantrics. Number three, other occult powers have nothing to do with spirituality or with the mystic powers of the planes. These occult powers are of two types. A, superior occult powers. B, inferior occult powers. The one who has these occult powers can make good or bad use of the same. Good use of occult powers helps one to put himself on the planes of the path, and may even make one a Mahayogi. Bad use of these occult powers makes one suffer intensely in the next human form. Good use of superior occult powers puts one on the fifth plane of consciousness after 4 lives or reincarnations. A. Superior types of occult powers are derived from tantric exercises such as Chila Nashini or repetition of certain mantras, etc. The one who holds these powers can perform the so-called miracles, such as levitation, flying and floating in the air, dematerialization, and materialization, etc. B. Inferior types of occult powers need no tantric or any special exercises. They are had through sanskaras of past lives. For example, if someone has done certain good deeds many times in the past, his next incarnation may give him the faculty of inferior occult powers without undergoing any strenuous exercises. His sanskaras give him the faculty of inferior occult powers such as clairvoyance, clairaudience, healing, producing sweets or money seemingly out of nothing, etc. All such capabilities form part of the lower or inferior type of occult powers. If one makes good use of the inferior type of occult powers, he derives superior type of occult powers in his next life without undergoing any tantric exercises. Likewise, the one who puts to good use his faculty of hypnotism gains the superior type of occult powers in his next life. Ernie, could you continue with the next supplement, which, by the way, is also of part 7, referring back to part 7, the sevenfold veil.
13. Meditation. 68. A scheme for beginners based on a study of the divine theme by Meher Baba. Meditation has often been misunderstood as being a mechanical process of forcing the mind upon some idea or object. It is therefore only natural that most people should find great difficulty in their attempts to coerce the mind in a particular direction or to pin it down to one particular thing. Any purely mechanical handling of the mind is not only irksome, but is ultimately bound to be unsuccessful. The first principle which the aspirant should therefore remember is that the mind can be controlled and directed in meditation only according to the laws inherent in the makeup of the mind itself. and not by the application of any feats of simple willpower. Many people who do not technically meditate are often found to be deeply and intensely engrossed in systematic and clear thinking about some practical problem or theoretical subject. In a sense, their mental process is very much like meditation, inasmuch as the mind is engrossed in intense thinking about a particular subject matter to the exclusion of all irrelevant things. The reason meditation is often easy and spontaneous in such a mental process is that the mind is dwelling upon a subject in which it is interested and which it increasingly understands. But the spiritual tragedy about ordinary trains of thought is that they are not directed towards things that really matter. The subject matter of meditation must therefore always be carefully chosen, and it must be spiritually important. In order to maintain success in meditation, we must not only get the mind interested in the divine subjects or truths, but we must also begin by trying to understand and appreciate them. Intelligent meditation is a natural process of the mind, which avoids the monotonous rigidity and regularity of mechanical meditation. It therefore becomes not only spontaneous and inspiring, but easy and successful. Some intelligent meditation consists in thorough thinking about a particular subject. It follows that the best way to meditate would be to make a brief and clear exposition of an appropriate subject. For this purpose, there could be nothing better than the divine theme with its charts, which is reproduced in the following section. The process of meditation, which Mayor Baba recommends, has 3 stages. 1, in the first stage, the aspirant will read through the divine theme daily, studying the charts also, and thinking about it thoroughly as he does so. In the second stage, when the aspirant has the entire subject at his fingertips, actual reading becomes unnecessary, but the subject matter of the exposition will be mentally reviewed with the help of the charts when necessary. 3, in the third stage, which will develop naturally out of the second, it will be quite unnecessary for the mind to review the words or the thoughts in the exposition separately and consecutively, or even to refer to the facts, and all discursive thinking about the subject matter will come to an end. At this stage of meditation, the mind will no longer be occupied with any trains of thought, but will have a clear understanding of the sublime truths expressed in the exposition. Page 220, 14, The Divine Theme, 68, by Meher Baba. Evolution reincarnation, and the path to realization. Introduction to the charts. A soul becomes perfect after passing through evolution, reincarnation, and the process of realization. And the asterisk says, see chart 9, A, soul becomes Z, soul. To gain full consciousness, it gets increasing sanskaras in the process of evolution, till in the human form, it gets full consciousness, as well as all the gross sanskaras. In the process of reincarnation, this soul retains its full consciousness and exchanges, that is, alternatingly experiences, the diverse sanskaras in itself. And in the process of realization, the soul retains its full consciousness, but its sanskaras become fainter and fainter till they all disappear and only consciousness remains. While becoming faint, gross sanskaras become subtle sanskaras. Subtle sanskaras become mental sanskaras. And finally, they all disappear. Up to the human form, the winding process of sanskaras becomes stronger and stronger in the process of evolution. In the human form, in the process of reincarnation, the winding retains its full strength. But in the process of realization, the sanskaras gradually unwind themselves till in the God state, they are completely unwound. God, the Oversoul, alone is real. Nothing exists but God. The different souls are in the Oversoul and one with it. The processes of evolution, reincarnation, and realization are all necessary in order to enable the soul to gain self-consciousness. In the process of winding, sanskaras become instrumental for the evolution of consciousness, though they also give sanskaric bindings. And in the process of unwinding, sanskaric attachments are annihilated, though the consciousness which has been gained is fully retained. In the process of the winding of sanskaras, the soul goes through 7 stages of descent. And in the process of unwinding, the soul goes through 7 stages of ascent. But the phenomena of descent as well as ascent are both illusory. The soul is everywhere and indivisibly infinite, and it does not move or descend or ascend. Page 221. The souls of all men and women, of all nationalities, castes and creeds, are really one, and their experiences of good and evil, of fighting and helping, of waging wars and living in peace, are all a part of illusion and delusion, because all these experiences are gained through bodies and minds, which in themselves are nothing. Before the world of forms and duality came into existence, there was nothing but God. That is, an indivisible and boundless ocean of power, knowledge, and bliss. But this ocean was unconscious of itself. Picture to yourself this ocean is absolutely still and calm, unconscious of its power, knowledge, and bliss, and unconscious that it is the ocean. The billions of drops which are in the ocean do not have any consciousness. They do not know that they are drops, nor that they are the ocean, nor that they are a part of the ocean. This represents the original state of reality. This original state of reality comes to be disturbed by an urge to know itself. This urge was always latent in the ocean. And when it begins to express itself and endows the drops with individuality, when this urge makes the still water move, there immediately spring up numerous bubbles or forms around the drops. And it is these bubbles which give individuality to the drops. The bubbles do not and cannot actually divide the indivisible ocean. They cannot separate the drop from the ocean. They merely give to these drops a feeling of separateness or limited individuality. Now let us study the life of one drop soul through its different stages. Owing to the arising of the bubble, the drop soul, which was completely unconscious, is invested with individuality or a feeling of separateness, as well as with very slight consciousness. This consciousness, which has sprung up in the drop soul, is not of itself nor of the ocean, but it is of the bubble or the form, which in itself is nothing. This imperfect bubble at this stage is represented by the form of a stone. After some time, this bubble or form bursts, and there springs up in its place another bubble or form. Now, when a bubble bursts, two things happen. One, there is an increase in consciousness. And two, there is a twist or consolidation of impressions or sanskaras accumulated during the lifetime of the previous bubble. The consciousness of the drop soul has now slightly increased, but the drop soul is still conscious only of this new bubble or form, and not of itself nor of the ocean. This new bubble is represented by the form of the metal. This new bubble or form also bursts in due course of time, and simultaneously there is a further increase in consciousness and a fresh twist or consolidation of sanskaras, which gives rise to the emergence of another type of bubble or form.
Thanks, Ernie. Mahu, please.
This process continues right through the course of evolution, which covers the stages of stones, metals, vegetables, worms, fishes, birds, and animals. Every time that the previous bubble or form bursts, it gains more consciousness and adds one twist to the already accumulated samskaras until it reaches the human bubble or form in which the ever-increasing consciousness becomes full and complete. The process of the winding up of samskaras consists of these regular twists, and it is these twists which keep the consciousness gained by the drop soul directed and fixed towards the bubble or the form instead of towards its real self. Even when consciousness is fully developed in the human form. On gaining the human form, the second process begins. This process is that of reincarnation. At this point, the process of the winding up of samskaras comes to an end. The drop soul takes numerous human forms one by one, and these forms are exactly 84 lakhs in number. These human forms are sometimes those of man and sometimes those of woman, and they change nationalities, appearance, color, and creed. The drop soul, through human incarnations, experiences itself sometimes as a beggar and sometimes as a king, and thus gathers experiences of the opposites of happiness or misery according to its good or bad samskaras. In incarnation, in its successive and several human forms, the drop soul returns its full consciousness, but continues to have alternating experiences of opposite samskaras till the process of realization begins. And during this process of realization, the samskaras get unwound. Should be unwound. In reincarnations, there is a spending up of samskaras, but this spending up is quite different from the unwinding of the samskara, which takes place during the process of realization. The spending up of samskaras itself creates new samskaras, which bind the soul, but the unwinding of samskaras does not itself create fresh samskaras, and it is intended to undo the very strong grip of samskaras in which the drop soul is cut. Up to the human form, the winding up of samskaras becomes stronger and stronger during the process of evolution. In the human forms of reincarnation, the winding continues to operate as a limiting factor. But with every change of the human bubble or form, the tight twists gained during the process of winding get loosened through 84 lakhs of shakings. Astros, before they are ready to unwind in the process of realization. In asterisks, in regard to 84 lakhs of shakings, it explains in the bottom of the page. Many readers do not discern that Meher Baba customarily described the life cycle as evolution, reincarnation, involution, and the process of realization. Fearing the statement in the text above might seem contradictory to that in paragraph 3, page 176. We asked Erich Jasowala for clarification. He replied, once one is on the planes of consciousness, the reincarnation process may be said to have come to its fag end. On the path leading to beloved God, the impatience to see him and to be one with him is intense. Such reincarnations as are necessary due to impressions burdening the consciousness seem almost nil when compared to 84 lakhs of shakings. And this is a note by editor. We already read before they are ready to unwind in the process of realization. Okay, now begins the third process of realization, which is a process of ascent. Here, the drop soul undergoes the gradual unwinding of the sanskaras. During this process of unwinding, the sanskaras become fainter and fainter. And at the same time, the consciousness of the drop soul gets directed more and more towards itself. And thus, the drop soul passes through the subtle and mental planes till all the sanskaras disappear completely, enabling it to become conscious of itself as the ocean. In the infinite ocean of the oversoul, you are the drop or the soul. You are the soul in the ordinary state, and you use your consciousness in seeing and experiencing the bubble or the foam. Through the gross layer of the bubble, you experience that part of the huge gross bubble, which is the earth. You're eternally lodged and indivisibly one with the oversoul, but you do not experience it. In the advanced stage, up through the third plane, you use your consciousness in seeing and experiencing the huge subtle bubble called the subtle world, through the subtle bubble or form called the subtle body. But you do not see and experience the oversoul which you are in, since your consciousness is not now directed towards the oversoul. In the advanced stage, from the fourth through the sixth plane, you use your consciousness in seeing and experiencing the huge mental bubble, which is called the mental world. Through the mental bubble or form, which is called the mental body, but even now, you do not experience the oversoul. But in the God-realized state, you continually use your consciousness for seeing and experiencing the oversoul. And then all the forms are known as being nothing but bubbles. So now picture yourself as the soul drop lodged in the oversoul behind 5 layers after the gross body. You, the soul drop, are now looking at the gross body and through it at the gross world. When you look at the second layer and through it, the first layer will appear to you as nothing but a layer only. And thus, looking behind each layer, you will find all these layers as only your shadow covers. And finally, when you, like the drop soul, look at and get merged in the oversoul, you realize that only you were real, and all that you were seeing and experiencing till now was your own shadow and nothing else. Explanation of charts 9 and 10. Now chart 9. The big semicircle in chart 9 represents the oversoul, which contains everything in the universe. The life of a single individual soul is depicted in the 3 main stages of evolution, reincarnation, and the process of realization. Capital S stands for the individual soul. Before attaining the human form, it goes through 7 stages of each of the following kinds of existence, like a stone, metal, vegetable, worm, fish, bird, and animal. At the 7th stage, for example, just before entering a new kind of existence, you will note a pictorial representation of a twist or a knot, which stands for a consolidation of previously acquired sanskaras. The outer red circles round the individual soul with capital S represents the sanskaras accumulated during the process of evolution, and the blue appendage and the blue appendage to capital S represents the consciousness, which comes to be developed simultaneously. Capital A soul becomes capital Z soul after going through evolution, reincarnation, and the process of realization. It is only in the God state that consciousness is free from sanskaras. The gross, subtle, and mental worlds like Anobahumi, Pranbahumi, and Manobahumi are each represented by a big circle on the right-hand side. Since consciousness of the gross world is not fully developed in the pre-human stages of evolution, the lines which connect the stone, metal, vegetable, worm, fish, bird, and animal souls through their respective stone, metal, vegetable, worm, fish, bird, and animal forms are shown merely as touching the gross world, only partially. While since consciousness is fully developed in the human form, it is shown through corresponding lines as being capable of understanding the entire gross world in all its different aspects.
Thank you, Mahu. Rolf, are you reading this evening?
Let's see if my microphone's working. It's been on the blink.
Loud and clear,
Okay.
top
Where
of the
are we
page.
in the process?
Yep.
Better put some glasses on. In the process of reincarnations, the soul may take a male or a female form, and it may belong to any nationality, creed, or religion. From the point of view of self-knowledge, the process up to the attainment of human forms represents a natural descent, though it looks like an ascent, and the process of realization represents an actual ascent. Though it looks like a descent. And these two processes are respectively represented by a line representing descent of winding knots of sanskaras, which goes up from the stone stage to the gross world. And by a line representing ascent of unwinding knots of sanskaras, which comes down from the gross world to the God state. The process of ordinary reincarnations begins after the winding is complete, and it continues till the unwinding has begun. In the process of realization, advanced souls from the first through the third planes are conscious only of the subtle world through their subtle bodies. They are aware of ordinary souls who are gross conscious and can act upon them in the subtle world. But all this is done by them through the subtle body and in the subtle world, and they have no connection with the gross world through the gross body. In the same way, advanced souls from the fourth through the sixth planes are aware of gross conscious as well as subtle conscious souls, but they act upon them in the mental world through the mental body, and they have no connection with the gross world through the gross body, nor with the subtle world through the subtle body. Therefore, the lines in the chart connect the subtle, lines in the chart connect the subtle conscious. Therefore, the lines in the chart connect the subtle conscious souls only with the subtle conscious world, and the corresponding lines connect the mental conscious souls only with the mental conscious world. In the God state, in which all the sanskaras are unwound consciousness is turned only to God. This is the state of Majubs e Kamil, who have no connection with the gross, nor the subtle, nor the mental worlds. But a few who enjoy the God state also come down and regain the consciousness of the entire creation. These are the souls of the masters. The soul of the master is represented by 7 concentric colored rings. The following points, which have been brought out by connecting lines, should be carefully noted. 1, the master soul is connected with the beyond God, which is the Vidyan, or the resting place of the masters. 2 is 2. It is connected with the God state. And 3, it is not connected. It is not only connected with all the 3 worlds, but all the souls, whether they are mental conscious, subtle conscious, or reincarnating human souls who are gross conscious, or souls who are in the pre-human evolutionary stage. Chart 10. Chart 10 brings out the details pertaining to the process of evolution up to the human form and the process of realization up to the state of a God-realized being. The innermost small circle, which is referred to by S, represents the individual soul. The soul is shown as having an increasing number of circles around itself up to the human form, and it is shown as retaining all these circles later on. The second circle, which is next to the soul, represents consciousness, which goes on increasing up to the human form, but afterwards it remains constant. In evolution, vegetables acquire the most undeveloped instinct. Wow, but not the subtle body. Which, does anyone want to read the asterisk, the footnotes?
Sure, please. Yes.
Eugene
Yes, please.
or Mahu, you want me to read them?
Go ahead,
asterisk.
Rolf.
Oh, for the significant C chart, see the chart, and then the other is the cross is nevertheless in the gaseous or stone. Now, where was that footnote? Oh, it's at the end of, but not the subtle body. A vegetable acquires the most undeveloped instinct, but not the subtle body, which, okay, nevertheless, in the gaseous or stone or mental or vegetable form, the soul also identifies itself through, though unconsciously, with the most finite subtle form and its most finite mental form. Y'all good for that? See page 31 of text. Okay. Wow, those are concentric circles. Cool. Wow.
So the previous sentence was saying the subtle body, which Go ahead from here, which emerges.
Sorry. Emerges in an undeveloped form in worms and reptiles. So we're heading out of the vegetable kingdom. This subtle body goes on developing until it is fully developed in the human form. Side by side with the development of the subtle body, there is the simultaneous development of instinct. Intellect, in its partial development, makes its first appearance at the stage of animals. But the mental body appears only at the last stage, represented by the human form. I'm going to stop there.
Thanks, sir. Thank you, Ralph.
Thank you. Yeah.
In the human form, the first innermost circle represents the individual soul. The next outer circle represents full consciousness. And then the other outer circles, in the order in which they are drawn, respectively represent 1, the seat of individuality, 2, sanskaras or unexpressed desires, 3, intellect, 4, felt desires of the mental body, 5, subtle body, in which there is a partial expression of desires, and 6, the gross body, in which the desires come to be fully expressed. All the circles round the innermost circle of the soul, with the exception of the first circle of consciousness, are layers of consciousness. Of these layers, the outermost circle and the circle next to it respectively represent the gross and the subtle bodies, while the other 4 layers around consciousness represent 4 functions of one mental body. Of these 4 functions of the mental body, 2, that is, felt desires and intellect, are usually included under mind. And the other 2, that is, sanskaras or unexpressed desires, and the seat of individuality, are included under the ego. Thus, at the human stage, the soul, with its consciousness, has 3 bodies, but 6 layers, including the gross layer known as the gross body. Ernie, would you continue, please?
When, after reincarnations, the human soul launches upon the process of realization, intellect is replaced by inspiration, which finds its expression from the first to the third plane, and from the fourth to the sixth plane. This inspiration is transformed into illumination. The colored rings or concentric circles represent the soul of a God-realized person with all the vehicles at its disposal. In respect to this diagram, the following points should be carefully noted. The 3 outer rings respectively represent the gross, subtle, and the mental bodies. We find all these bodies also in ordinary human beings. 2. In the God realized person, there has emerged a new spiritual body known as a universal body or Maha Karana Sharir, which is the seat of the universal mind. Just as water is contained in a cup, the universal mind may be said to be contained in the universal body. Therefore, though the universal body and the universal mind are represented by two different circles, they are inseparable from each other. The universal mind of the master, which works through his universal body, is in direct contact with the mental bodies of all the individual souls in creation. And it can, through these mental bodies, bring about any changes in the mental, subtle, or gross worlds. Though the master has a mental body like ordinary humans, he always works only through his universal mind. 3. In the master's soul, the limited ego of the human stage is transmuted into the unlimited ego. That is, the feeling of separateness and narrow individuality is replaced by the realization of unlimited, indivisible, and all-comprehensive existence. 4. The soul of the master is endowed with infinite consciousness. The full consciousness at the human stage does not reveal or express the infinity of the soul, owing to the limitations of sanskaras. But in the God-realized person, this full consciousness is not limited by any sanskaras, and therefore it reveals or expresses the infinity of the soul.
Thanks, Ernie. Mahu, would you care to read, or shall we save this for next time?
I can read, so we finish. Oh, you mean the 15?
Yes.
Oh, we can save it for next time. I think it's 5:04. Because,
Perfect.
yeah, it'd be more cohesive that way, because now we covered both charts. Yeah, I think.